This is the screencast for Lesson 3 of Visual Basic 24-Hour Trainer. This lesson is about making controls arrange themselves, and in this try it, you're going to build this application which demonstrates several methods for making controls arrange themselves. So here's the starting application. I haven't done anything to it yet except give it a new title. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger, and we'll start by adding this main menu to the form. This project has a menu up here, a status label on the bottom, and then some other controls in the middle. So to create the menu, I'm going to just double click the MenuStrip to drop one on the form. By default, it docks to the top of the form, so that's why it occupies this top area. Menu strips are a little unusual. Unlike labels, text boxes, buttons, and controls like that, they don't simply sit on the form. They also display other things, such as submenus and cascading submenus. So they have a presence here on the form, but they also have one down here in this gray area called the component tray. To create the menu, I simply click on one of those type here boxes and start typing. I'm going to make a file menu, and I put an ampersand in front of the F to make the F be an accelerator key, so it's displayed with an underscore. At runtime, the user can press Alt F to open this menu. You can create other menus similarly. Here I'm going to create a separator by giving this one caption just a dash or minus sign. Alternatively, you could right click on a menu item, select Insert Separator to create a separator. Here I'm creating the exit command. By convention, the accelerator for the exit command is the X, not the E. Now this is the only command I'm going to give code to, so I want to give it a good name. My convention for menus is I use menu for menu and then the complete path to the menu item. So it's the file menu exit command. So menu file exit. Let's do that right now. I'm going to close the application. So to do that, I simply say me.close. This keyword me means whatever object is currently executing code, and in this case it's the form. So what this says is it tells the form to close itself. Alright, so that's our menu. Let's add the status strip next. I'll just double click to add it. Notice it also has a presence down here in the component tray. Also notice that by default it docks to the bottom of the form. That's where they typically live. To add items to it, you click this drop down arrow and just pick whatever kind of item you want to add. I'm going to add a status strip label, and I'm going to change its text to status label just so we have something to look at. Now typically, if you're using menus and status strips, you want to dock whatever else you put in here to fill the rest of the form. If you use a typical control like a button, you'll see that it does not obey the docking reserved by the other controls. It can overlap the status label or the menu. So you would need to go into the properties window and set the dock property yourself. You can do that by typing in fill or clicking on this and typing F. That would the editor would know that you mean fill, or you can use this little editor where you can click on these boxes to indicate top, left, bottom, or none. Here's fill, so that makes a really huge button. I don't want to do that, so I'm going to delete the button. And in this application, this area is occupied by split container. It displays these controls on the left and these on the right, and then at runtime the user can grab a splitter in the middle and drag it back and forth to resize the two panels. So let me drop a split container in here. By default, split containers dock to fill whatever space is available, and that's just what we want in this example. Now in this picture, the split container is green, so let me make it green here. If I click here, I'm not actually clicking the split container, I'm clicking on the panel that it contains. And if you look over here, you can see it says split container 1.panel2. Here's split container 1.panel1. What I really want is the split container itself. One way to find it is to go over to the properties window, open this drop down, and just click on the split container. Another way to find it is to come over here and click on this little gap between the two panels. That'll get it for you as well. So I'm just going to change the background color to be green. Next, we need to add this label and this list box to the left panel. So let me come over here. I click on the panel and then double click on the label to put a label on the panel. If you don't select the panel first, then when you drop the label it may land somewhere else. It may land on the form or in the wrong panel. If it is, you just click it and drag it over to the correct panel. and drop it on the panel where you want it. Now I could position this in a bunch of ways. I could move it manually up here to where I want it. Or in this case, I'm just going to dock it so that it's at the top of the form, top of the panel. And I want to change its text to say books. Next, I want to add a list box over here. So again, I click the panel and then double click list box. Notice that it's not docked, so it's not obeying the wishes of that label. I'm going to drag this one into position. You could dock it to fill the rest of the panel, but I want to give it a little bit of an indentation on the left. So I'll drag it into position. In a real application, the code would need to do something with this list, so I better give it a good name. I'll call it LST Books. I'm going to anchor it to left, right, bottom, top. So as the panel that contains it resizes, the list will resize. To do that, I could type these values in here, top, comma, left, comma, bottom, comma, right. Or I can click the drop down to get this little editor, and I just select the ones, the anchor properties that I want, and press enter. So now as this panel resizes, the list will resize. I'm going to save my work because this is a fairly complicated interface, and I've had problems before where if I build something too complicated, sometimes Visual Studio gets confused and I lose all the work I've been doing. All right, so that's the left panel. Let me do one more thing here. I want to add some items to this list box just so we can see it and we can see its scroll bars. So here's the items property. I can click this ellipsis to get a collection editor. So I'm going to add a couple books. Gullible's Travels, Visual Basic 2010 Programmer's Reference, my favorite book, and others. And I want to have a bunch of books in here so we can see those scroll bars. So I'm just going to copy and paste those. We'll get some duplicates, but at least now I can see the scroll bars.